Welcome to MotorLand, a podcast driven by AAA about the road of life and the wheels that set our journeys in motion. I'm Jarod and the voice of motorsports and auto events all around the world, and your wheelman here in MotorLand.
And I'm Michelle Donati from AAA. Happy to be along for the ride.
All right, Michelle, are you ready? I think you're going to be amazed by the custom auto work these women are doing this episode. I know them personally. They're awesome.
I saw some of this work online, and it is really impressive.
They're sisters, Sara Morosan and Theresa Contreras. In a male world, they have made a name for themselves. And I just love that they do it together. It's a family operation. So they've built and painted some custom autos and concept rides for the world's biggest automakers and celebrities, from Ford and Kia to Jay Leno's garage. So I'm super excited.
So you could say these sisters are doing it for themselves.
That was, yes. Love that song. Can we use that to intro them? I think it's great. They're laughing right now, Michelle, but it was beautiful.
Fantastic. I love it. Thank you for that intro.
All right, then buckle up. Let's ride. Sara and Theresa, thank you for joining us here in MotorLand. You ladies are so busy.
Always.
Let's start at your childhood, growing up, working with cars, the family business. Tell us about what it was like growing up and how you discovered your talents. Sara?
Yeah. So our parents owned an auto body shop, but it's funny because people are like, oh, you guys are the same family. But like, I think because I was a little bit younger, I just had a different experience with it. I started helping after school and kind of just following what my mom was doing. And honestly, I thought I wanted to be an insurance agent.
You could have worked for AAA.
This is perfect.
For AAA, yes. Yeah, yes. Like my dad was doing some builds here and there. And one of the projects that he did was for FabTech, painting one of their vehicles, and they traded him in parts. So my dad had these parts sitting there and I was like, oh, I can sell these. So started selling parts, selling at like different swap meets and things like that. And then in 96, my sister helped me put a website together to start selling truck parts online. And so we came up with customtruckshop.com. So that's kind of where I started more on the truck side of the aftermarket parts.
Michelle, have you seen Theresa's paint work?
I have seen some of it online, and it is really, really impressive. And so I would love to know how you took your love of painting and art and made cars your canvas.
I actually went to school to be a graphic design. I wasn't like a fine artist per se. And so with graphic design, it really gave me that outlet to understand a lot of different mediums. So like Sara was kind of mentioning, like she wanted to be an insurance adjuster. We're at we had a collision repair business with, and that's her and I worked with our parents doing things like that. When I was in the office working, one day I told them, I said, we're waiting for this guy to pinstripe this car. He hasn't showed up yet. I'm just going to do it myself. Literally did it probably 20 times, kept messing it up, wiping it off. So the next morning I did it. And then everyone was like really surprised by it. And I was like, I told you guys I was going to do it, And so I would just lock myself in the booth at night and just start, teaching myself by trial and error, how to paint. And that's where I transferred that graphic design and that, love that I had for art onto the canvas of cars.
And here's a great analogy. A good paint job needs good prep work.
Yes.
It doesn't matter how good you are at laying paint, laying clear coat, you need to prep. And you guys have had, again, just this amazing story. And Sara, you've been acknowledged by SEMA, Specialty Equipment Market Association. And really, it's a male dominant world. My wife works in the automotive industry as well. But let's talk about being women in such a male dominated field. What is that like, Sara?
So it's funny because when we were younger, I didn't really know that we were women in a male dominated field. I mean, my mom has always worked alongside of our dad, right? So they brought us up where like, if you wanted something, then you worked for it and you just did it. But I also used to use it as my advantage as well. I went to Texas one time with Alpine. They did this study where they brought out 200 people. It was 100 of the top truck shops and then 100 of the top stereo shops. And I walked in there, and out of 200 people, I was the only female that walked into that room.
Wow.
And it's like I was there a whole week. And at first I was like, oh my gosh, this is so intimidating. There's not another single female here. But coming away from that experience, for years after, I would always get guys going, "Oh, you were the girl that was at the Alpine retreat with us." And oh, you know, so it was like, I stood out being the only female there as well. So to me, I get that I'm a woman in a male industry, but I guess I just always try to find the advantages of it instead.
Like the car speaks for itself and the work speaks for itself. And I analogously say the prep work, because here's your mom who showed you and your dad who prepped you for this role and this opportunity. Michelle, you know, they've worked with massive manufacturers. And again, some of these projects they've worked on are pretty amazing.
Yeah, I heard that you guys did some custom work for Jay Leno. I've seen him at Barrett-Jackson when I was growing up. And so I'd love to know more about that story.
So we've been doing a lot of work with Ford Motor Company for quite a few years now.
Never heard of them.
Yeah, right. It's been exciting to be able to, you know, have vehicles in the Ford booth at SEMA. In the past, it was always the biggest booth that you wanted to go see at the show. They reached out to us because, you know, they know the quality of work that we do at the show. And they were looking to have a Bronco completed in 3 months, a restoration, which we really had to think about this long and hard. And we were like, what are you talking about? Like, that's pretty much impossible to do. But they were like, hey, this is a project for Jay Leno. I mean, literally, it was one of the biggest press conferences that SEMA's ever had. And so we were traveling. We'd go to Detroit to figure out all the engine work. We'd go to Tennessee to figure out all the chassis. At one time, we actually had like 23 people on the phone trying to figure out how to marry this transmission and this motor together because it had never been done before. And he wanted a manual. And it was just insane, the amount of work.
Wow.
And on top of that, trying to fit the one-off motor from Ford with all the wiring harnesses and the computers and trying to figure that out as well in that 3 months with 3D printed parts to work with the older Bronco so that we can incorporate some of the newer stuff for the new Bronco launch that was going to be coming out.
So it's a beautiful, beautiful 68 Ford Bronco. And he drives it. People see him all over Burbank driving that thing all the time. And Jay Leno himself is just such an amazing guy to begin with. So he's just such a cool car guy. I mean, to go into his car collection, you know, Jarod knows, right? You've been there multiple times too. It's so cool to, you know, to work with all the Ford designers on projects like that. It's exactly why we love to do what we do.
You building a SEMA car in itself, there's always down to the wire. And again, the SEMA show is just this great platform of a trade show and seeing everybody's innovation and what's going on. So what's the most ridiculous mod you ever did?
For me, I think it's the Ballast Point one. You know, I mean, they came to us, they were like, we want this vehicle to completely open up and turn in, you know, into a, you know, mobile brewing station.
And what was it?
So the Ballast Point one was a Kia Sedona. So it's a van basically. And they came to us and they wanted us to fully open it up. And then we recreated everything else in wood. And then it was drivable. You know, you could drive it down the street and still use it. And it was amazing.
What is the custom job that you're most proud of, Sara, to you?
I mean, like she said, the Ballast Point one is probably the one that showcased everything that our shop can do the most, like custom painting, being creative, going outside of the box. But some of the ones from Kia have been probably our most challenging because they're a little bit more outside of the box where they're like, we want to do this. For me, I would say when we built the Tellurides that had to be driven around SEMA for 4 days, that was probably one of the most challenging for us because we do SEMA vehicles all the time. And a lot of people know it's like when you're building them, you want to make sure that they still function and everything and you can drive them. And you have 4 or 5 months to build these cars that have to be driven in circles in an off-road track for 4 days in a row, like nonstop, and make sure they don't break. And nobody makes parts for these cars because they don't exist yet. So those are probably the ones that are like the most challenging, but they're also the most fun. We keep going to Kias, with the most challenging. There we go, Kia.
Always.
It's always Kia. But what's cool about that is the question I asked you what you're most proud of, and your answer was pretty much the most difficult. So it speaks to
Right.
your team's tenacity.
What I love is I have a minivan and I'm always like, the minivan, I used to be cool, right? But the ballast point now, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm sleeping on the minivan because there's some potential here. If you can turn a minivan into a mobile brewery, like I could be the hit of the neighborhood. Like
Michelle's
my wheels are turning.
We're ready, Michelle. We're ready.
exactly.
Do it.
You gals have been a resource to a lot of people. Where can more women connect in this industry?
I'm actually the chair-elect for SBN, which is the Business Women's Network. There's tons of resources. One of the big things I tell a lot of the ladies, it's really important that you find somebody in your industry to talk to about things. When you find other women that are just as passionate about you or are going through the same things as you, they've already been there or they understand it. And the young women that are coming in from like scholarships or just different things we do have been amazing. And 10 years ago, we met most of the women that are probably some of our best friends now on the SBN all-female build, which was a Mustang. And that is probably where we connected the most. And there was 55 women that worked on that build 10 years ago. This year, we have over 258 women that have raised their hand to work on this build and over 150 companies that have been out to support it. So it's really amazing to see like the backing and the women that are raising their hand in this industry.
Yeah.
Man, I love it. And I mean, Michelle, are you inspired?
I'm so inspired. I love how you have paved the way and you're paying it forward at the same time.
Aw.
Sara and Theresa, thank you for joining us in MotorLand.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Just coming off that, I get excited. It's just, they could build anything.
I mean, you're talking a car from Jay Leno's garage. You're talking a brewery on wheels.
And them being sisters, they both complement each other, right?
I mean, and the fact that Theresa was self-taught, right? Like, hey, this guy didn't show up. I'm going to do this myself. And then it's turned into this insane career. Like, I'm blown away.
You can't teach that hustle.
We want to hear from you. If you have an interesting story to tell, or maybe you have a really sweet custom ride that you want the world to see, hit us up on Instagram at MotorLand Podcast.
Thanks again to AAA for revving up this podcast. And I'm just inspired. I'm ready to go work on my car right now. MotorLand is executive produced by AAA Mountain West Group in cooperation with Sound That Brands. Hello, Take Me Anywhere, written by Justin Sullivan, performed by Night Shop, by arrangement with Terror Bird Media. Thank you so much for listening. If you like it here in MotorLand, give us a rating and review. It's kind of like sending a postcard that says, "Wish you were here." I'm Jarod D'Anda. May the road rise to meet you and the wind be at your back. We'll see you again soon in MotorLand.